"Mom, don't die," I heard my daughter crying. "Can you hear me, Mrs. Dempsey?" said a softly spoken doctor, as she leaned over the hospital bed, shining a small torch right into my wife's eyes. Rachel blinked and quickly moved her head to the side, irritated by the sudden attack of her senses. "I'm fine," she said. "Unfortunately, you're not fine, Mrs. Dempsey," replied Dr. Bloomberg, as I stepped forward, gripping my wife's hand in mine. The left side of her face had dropped so dramatically I barely even recognized her, and her speech was slurred. "Can you move?" I asked my wife, tears streaming down my face. "What?" she replied. Of course I can move. The doctor asked her to squeeze my hand, but nothing happened. She asked her to move her legs, but again nothing. Panic struck me, and then the realization hit me like a freight train. My wife was paralyzed. What the hell's happening? My wife screamed at the doctor. Do something, she said with fear in her eyes. "Mrs. Dempsey," said the doctor, "there's very little I can do right now. The feeling in your arms and legs may come back, but it may not. Your blood sugar was off the charts when the ambulance brought you in. You've been in a diabetic coma, and it's difficult to tell at this point how much damage your brain may have suffered. But here's one thing I'm sure of," she continued. What's that? My wife asked, desperately praying for some good news. "If you don't get your blood sugar under control, this will happen again, and you may not survive next time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rachel was only 49 years old. She'd been my wife for 27 years. We were happy with 3 beautiful children. And here I was, watching helplessly as she lay trapped in her own body, lying motionless on the cold steel hospital bed, facing the very real possibility that in a few months or even a few weeks, she might be dead. Rachel looked over at me and the kids and burst into tears. I felt stupid that I hadn't done more to help her take control of her diabetes when I had the chance. Angry at myself for believing the doctors when they kept on telling us to keep taking the meds. But now my wife couldn't move her limbs, and I had no idea if she ever would again. So why am I sharing this story with you? Well, because the most traumatic day of my life, where my own wife almost died in my arms, turned out to be the beginning of a life-changing journey. A journey that would not only expose the truth about how today's diabetes drugs are all set to keep you trapped on the medication merry-go-round for life, but more importantly, it would lead me to uncover a breakthrough blood sugar lowering secret known only to a remote tribe in the jungles of Sri Lanka, which has made these people practically immune to diabetes. This secret tribal trick has since allowed my wife to quickly and naturally lower her high blood sugar and transform her cardiovascular health, shed a whopping 35 pounds, and reverse her type 2 diabetes, going from this to this, in as little as a few short weeks. This groundbreaking discovery, which has no doubt caught the attention of the mainstream medical establishment, is something that you've probably never heard about before. In fact, I'm here to tell you that everything you thought you knew about diabetes and how to control your blood sugar levels could be flat out wrong. In the next 3 minutes, I'm going to show you how hard scientific proof from research carried out at the Garvan Institute of Medical Research in Australia and Thames Valley University in Brentford, England, and published in the Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism Journal, which proves beyond all doubt that your high blood sugar can be lowered and your type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes completely reversed 100% naturally and safely. Meaning very soon from now, you may not need any prescription meds at all, or painful and inconvenient insulin shots, or boring restrictive diets that make mealtimes seem like a chore rather than an event to enjoy. And best of all, you can follow this treatment program from the comfort of your own home, using simple and inexpensive ingredients picked up at your local grocery store. This easy-to-follow, home-based remedy can be used by anyone, whether you're suffering from type 2 diabetes or even pre-diabetes, whether your blood sugar readings are just above normal or completely off the charts, whether you've been diabetic for 10 minutes or 10 years, and if you're 19 or 90 years old. In fact, this simple little trick has already been used to help exactly 37,838 people to dramatically lower their blood sugar, melt fat, boost their energy levels, and slash their risk of diabetes-related health conditions like heart attacks, stroke, kidney disease, blindness, nerve damage, and more. And it could be the same for you too. Today, I'm offering you the chance to reverse your diabetes, to potentially end the need for expensive diabetes drugs and insulin, to reduce the financial, physical, or emotional burden upon your family, and to feel healthier, happier, and more energetic than you have in years, or possibly even decades. Sure, it may sound like a dream, but I promise you, all of this can be a reality, and far sooner than you could even imagine. But before I reveal the simple little tribal trick that will get you there, it's very important that you watch this presentation until the end, because the costs I'm incurring to get this message out to the American public means there's no guarantee that it will still be here tomorrow or even a few hours from now. So pay attention for the next few minutes and listen to every single word I have to say. Because I promise you, you can take complete control over your blood glucose levels with nothing more than a simple plate of food. That's right. A few simple ingredients is all you need to lower your blood sugar and reverse your type 2 diabetes 100% safely and completely naturally. And during this presentation, I'll be lifting the lid on the simple ingredients that go into making this delicious dish. Plus, I'll also be revealing the remarkable story of how I came to stumble upon this diabetes-crushing dish, a secret that until very recently was known only to the Vedda people of Sri Lanka, but has since not only reversed my wife's diabetes and transformed her health, but is currently changing the lives of tens of thousands of diabetics right across America. But don't just take my word for it. Have a listen to this.
Hi, my name is Jeff, and I live in Detroit, Michigan. I'm 57 years old, and I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 9 years ago. Like most people, my doctor prescribed the usual meds, and I must have spent thousands of dollars over the years doing nothing more than managing my diabetes. Not making it better or reversing it, just managing it. Over time, my health began to suffer because I wasn't dealing with the problem. I was just treating the symptoms. My blood sugar levels were off the charts. I had high blood pressure, kidney problems, and I had no feeling in my left foot. It was a scary time for me and my family, and I knew I couldn't carry on the way I was. That's when I found this program, and thank God I did. My readings dropped to 130. My blood pressure stabilized. My kidney function improved, and if that wasn't enough, I've also lost 12 pounds. Yesterday, at my doctor's appointment, she told me she had never seen a turnaround like it. So, to anyone out there with type 2 diabetes, give it a shot. You won't be disappointed.
Now, in just a few minutes, I'm going to show you the breakthrough scientific research that proves beyond all doubt how your type 2 diabetes can be completely reversed by adding a few simple ingredients to your daily meals. But before I get to that, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Michael Dempsey. I'm 51 years old and I live in Freeport, Maine with my wife Rachel and our 3 children, Archie, Sophia, and Olivia. And right now, I have a very personal and embarrassing story to tell you. Well, it's embarrassing for my wife anyway, but being the person she is, she's agreed to let me share it because she doesn't want the same thing to happen to you. And the chances are it will, if you choose to ignore what I'm about to tell you. Now, up until about 10 years ago, neither me nor my wife knew anything about diabetes. We were your average happily married 40-somethings, enjoying life, and like the majority of people, taking our health for granted pretty much every day. Until one cold January morning, when we received the news that would change our lives forever. My wife was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Rachel was shocked. We all were. I mean, she wasn't even 40 years old at the time. She'd been an all-star track champion in her teens. Sure, she'd put on a little weight, but she was still the sporty one in the family. I was the lazy couch potato who hated exercise, yet it was her who'd been struck down with a big D. Straight away, the doctor put her on medication to regulate her blood glucose levels, and although we didn't realize it at the time, this moment would mark the beginning of a decade-long nightmare. You see, all any of the doctors wanted to do was write a prescription for the next big drug, and this was the road we were forced down for the next 10 years. But as every other diabetic probably knows to their cost, none of the meds succeeded in reversing her health, because they can't. Today's diabetes drugs can't cure you. They can only manage the condition. And the results of this was that as the years rolled by, Rachel's energy levels, vitality, mood, and general health and well-being went rapidly downhill. She piled on more and more weight as she found herself unable to fight the intense cravings for sugary and starchy foods that overpowered her every day. And the more and more weight she put on, the more depressed she became and the further away she drifted from the woman I'd fallen in love with. But if that was bad, things were about to get a whole lot worse. 18 months ago, Rachel was diagnosed with high blood pressure and high cholesterol too, and she began to suffer from sharp, stabbing pains in her left leg and foot. She was told that she had nerve damage and was prescribed more meds to deal with that, which created a whole bunch of side effects that left her feeling sick and even more depressed. Before long, she found herself in so much pain because of the nerve damage that she could barely walk or even stand for longer than a few minutes. And because she wasn't able to get out of the house and do any kind of exercise, the weight just piled on, which began to put added pressure on her heart and other organs. Within the space of just 9 years, Rachel's weight had ballooned from a relatively healthy 160 pounds to a massive 270. And her blood sugar levels were becoming dangerously high. So high, in fact, that she was about to have a date with the Grim Reaper on the day of our daughter's wedding. You see, my wife was lying in the hospital bed paralyzed because just 24 hours earlier, on what should have been one of the happiest days of our lives, Rachel's deteriorating health came to a head, and the events of that day were so dramatic they could have been lifted straight out of a Hollywood movie. Our 23-year-old daughter Sophia was getting married to her childhood sweetheart Jamie. Like any proud and excited mother of the bride, Rachel spent the morning running around, organizing hairdressers, makeup artists, and everyone else with military precision, but by 10 a.m., she was starting to feel unwell. She'd been feeling tired a lot in recent weeks, but that morning, she didn't seem right at all. She seemed confused and said that she felt like she was coming down with a fever, but she knew she had to keep going. It was our daughter's wedding day after all. There was no time to feel sick. But as the day went on, Rachel began to feel more and more unwell, but she pressed on, determined not to spoil our daughter's big day. 1 p.m. rolled around, and there I was, standing outside a set of giant wooden church doors, holding my daughter's hand, shaking with nerves, as we waited for the wedding march to begin. But the proudest moment of my life would soon be interrupted by the worst. As the music started to play, my daughter and I began the long, slow walk into the church and down the aisle, as the congregation looked upon my daughter and I with beaming smiles. In fact, there was only one person in the entire church who wasn't smiling. It was my wife, Rachel. As we approached the vicar at the front of the church, I looked over to my left to see her face. She was as pale as a ghost and sweating. As the vicar addressed the guests, I turned my head back towards Rachel, asking her if she was okay. She nodded that she was fine, but it couldn't have been further from the truth. That very moment, it was like Rachel's eyes had rolled to the back of her head, and then she fell. She crashed to the floor with a bone-crunching thump that echoed around the church, jolting everyone in it. Blood trickled from a wound just above her right eye. Some of the guests gasped in shock. "Jesus Christ," I shouted, as I slid to the floor and cradled her bleeding head in my arms. Family and friends crowded around. "Has she fainted?" one of them asked. "It must have been all too much for her," said another, but I knew that it was much worse than that. We immediately called an ambulance, and instead of walking out of the church with a new son-in-law and a beaming bride, my wife left on a stretcher with an oxygen mask strapped to her face. The wedding was over. I jumped into the ambulance and sat beside her, while the rest of my family followed behind, including my daughter Sophia, whose wedding dress was smeared with blood from her mother's head wound. My wife was rushed to the Mid-Coast Hospital, where the doctors discovered that her blood glucose reading was up at a crazy 605 milligrams per deciliter, a potentially fatal high, and she was now in a diabetic coma. I had no idea whether she was going to live or die. Once we reached the hospital, the doctor explained that she had diabetic hyperosmolar syndrome caused by extremely high blood sugar levels. Her blood had become thick like syrup, and she was so dehydrated her body had effectively shut down and she passed out. Her brain had been starved of oxygen due to the time it took the ambulance to get to the church, and she was now partially paralyzed, with no way to tell whether she'd ever be able to walk again. As I sat there beside her hospital bed, holding her hands in mine, I made a promise to myself. If Rachel survived, I was going to do everything in my power to defeat her diabetes for good, whatever it took. There was no way I was going to let my kids grow up without their mom, and I knew I wouldn't be able to cope without her by my side. I was going to fix her, and I was going to do it without drugs. After all, the reasons for most of her health problems over those 10 years had been because of the drugs she had been taking. That's when her health really began to unravel. Fortunately, Rachel began to regain the feelings in her arms and legs, and her health slowly improved. She was still finding it difficult to control her blood sugar levels, and the conflicting advice from doctors and other so-called experts was not helping, and incredibly stressful for us both. I knew that if we didn't act soon, the same thing could happen again, and I wasn't going to run that risk. So I started to research natural ways to lower blood sugar levels. For weeks, I scoured the internet, visited libraries, and read through hundreds of dusty old medical journals. I visited universities, spoke to doctors, endocrinologists, alternative therapists, and even Chinese herb doctors for help. But I found nothing new. Just the same old tired advice of exercise more, eat less sugar and fewer carbs, and take your meds like a good little diabetic. Advice that you or any other diabetic listening to my story today has heard a million times before. I felt like there was no way out, and that it was just a matter of time until Rachel lost a limb, went blind, wound up in another diabetic coma, or even worse. But just when I was about to give up, I met the man that would change everything. One day, my wife and I were visiting the hospital for a checkup. It was routine for us after Rachel had almost died from her condition. Normally I'd go in with her, but this time I didn't. To this day, I can't really explain what made me stay in the waiting room, but I'm eternally grateful I did, because what happened next would literally save Rachel's life. After a couple minutes, an elderly couple sat beside me and we struck up a conversation. The man's name was Lakmal. It turned out that Lakmal was 91 years old and his wife was at the hospital for a hip replacement. He asked me why I was there, and I explained what happened to my wife. The old man smiled a knowing smile and then turned his head toward me. I come from a place where diabetes doesn't even exist, he said, and it's because of the food we eat. Where do you come from? I asked, excitedly. A remote jungle village called Dambana in Sri Lanka, replied Lakmal. For 80 years I belonged to a tiny tribe called the Vedda, but I moved to America to be with my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, he continued. Can you help me? I asked. Of course, if you want to be helped, he said. At that moment, the overhead speaker crackled into life, and Lakmal and his wife were called in for their appointment. Desperate not to miss the opportunity, I asked Lakmal for his number. He happily agreed, and I hurriedly typed it into my phone. Phone me whenever you like. I can help Rachel, he said, as he walked away holding his wife's hand. As we drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about what this little old Sri Lankan man had said, and as soon as I got home I started researching the Vedda people, and I couldn't believe what I found. Apparently back in 2009, researchers at the University of Peradeniya in Sri Lanka traveled to the remote villages of Dambana to delve into the diets of the Vedda tribe. According to the study, there were no recorded cases of diabetes or even pre-diabetes, not a single one. The research team were amazed at the similarity in their blood sugar readings and how stable they were even after meals. The tribe members were all lean, athletic, and a picture of health, even those in their 80s and 90s. In fact, none of the tribe had even heard of diabetes or insulin. The report concluded that there is a very low risk of these Veddas ever developing diabetes. It seemed that Lakmal really did have the secret to reversing my wife's diabetes. So I called him the very next day, literally begging him to tell me more. 3 days later, I received a big brown parcel in the mail from Lakmal. I excitedly ripped it open to find an old handwritten recipe book. Inside, there were dozens of traditional Vedda recipes. The problem was, it was written in the Vedda dialect. I couldn't read a word of it. With Lakmal's help, I was able to translate the recipes and discovered one of the ingredients was coconut oil, which provides the primary source of oil in the Vedda's diet. And this is a big reason why they're practically immune to diabetes. You see, coconut oil plays an essential role in regulating blood sugar. Firstly, it slows the digestive process to ensure a steady, even stream of energy from your food by lowering the overall glycemic index of your meal. When you include coconut oil in a meal with carbohydrates, for example, the carbs are broken down with glucose more slowly, so blood sugar levels remain steady even after you eat. In fact, a study at the Garvan Institute of Medical Research in Australia by Dr. Nigel Turner demonstrated that a diet rich in coconut oil protects against insulin resistance, the leading cause of diabetes. Further to that, population studies show that societies which consume most of their calories from the saturated fats of coconut oil have practically zero cases of diabetes. A study done in India in 1998, for example, showed that when Indians abandoned traditional fats like ghee and coconut oil and started using polyunsaturated fats like sunflower oil, the rates of diabetes shot up. This was amazing news. It seemed that a simple, everyday ingredient like coconut oil could regulate blood sugar and reverse type 2 diabetes. But that wasn't even half the story. You see, coconut oil is readily available in the US, so I knew there must be more to the Vedda diet that had made them practically immune to diabetes, and I wasn't prepared to stop until I'd found it. So I busily started looking into other natural ingredients found in the recipes. Within hours, I discovered a study from Thames University in Brentford, England, and published in the Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism Journal, which showed that one common household spice used by Vedda people reduced fasting blood glucose levels by a massive 29% in patient trials. And in a study at the Department of Nutrition at the University of California, Davis, the same spice was shown to normalize blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetics by dramatically improving the body's ability to respond to insulin. While another study published in Agricultural Research magazine found that consuming just 1 gram of this spice each day can increase insulin sensitivity and even reverse type 2 diabetes. Yes, they actually said that it could reverse type 2 diabetes. But there was more. A clinical study carried out at the Isfahan University of Medical Studies in Iran and published in the International Journal of Vitamin and Nutrition Research found that a simple herb also found in Lakmal's recipes reduced fasting blood sugar by 25% and bad cholesterol by a whopping 30% when soaked in water. I then discovered another natural ingredient, which had been shown to reduce insulin resistance by 45%, and within 1 week, dramatically lowered blood fasting and post-meal glucose levels. And then another ingredient that was able to lower insulin resistance by an average of 15% and actually increase the productivity of insulin-producing cells in the pancreas by 28%. And that was just the beginning. In fact, I couldn't believe what I was reading. There were dozens more completely natural herbs, spices, plant extracts, and other easily accessible foods that have been proven in clinical studies to lower blood sugar quickly and easily, restore pancreatic function, and reverse diabetes. Yet all of them seemed to be hidden away from the people who needed them most. Running out of time to help Rachel, I was anxious to develop some kind of formula. I realized the recipes Lakmal gave me must have been around for decades, if not centuries. The science had proven they worked, but the question was how fast and how effective they would be for people with severe diabetes, like Rachel. So I made the decision to go one step further and use modern science and 21st century knowledge to refine and improve these traditional recipes, which would, I hoped, unlock the door to reversing type 2 diabetes. The problem was, I wasn't a doctor. I had no idea how to do it. So I contacted the University of Peradeniya in Sri Lanka, who had been behind the original study into the Vedda people. But it was bad news. The professor and lead researcher of the study was no longer at the university. Once again, I felt stuck with no idea which way to turn. But when all hope seemed lost, I received a phone call from the university. It came from a man called Chaminda Kulasekara, and it would lead to the biggest breakthrough in diabetes treatment in the last 100 years. Although Chaminda wasn't at the university at the time of the original study, he was a specialist in endocrinology with 23 years' experience, and he had a personal interest in diabetes. His own father had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes just 6 years before, and he was passionate about finding a treatment plan that wouldn't involve drugs, but the university weren't prepared to fund his research. I asked Chaminda why. And what he said next shocked me to the core. The majority of medical research funding we receive comes from the pharmaceutical companies, he said. Diabetes is already a $245 billion market. Just think about that for a minute. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but he was right. I looked into it, and according to a recent study published in the journal Pharmacoeconomics, a person with type 2 diabetes will spend an average of just over $283,000 to treat the disease over their lifetime. And that's just one person. But get this. A recent report published by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention predicts that nearly 1/3 of all American adults will be diabetic by 2050 if things don't change. That's a lot of money that's going to be spent on diabetic drugs over the next few decades, Chaminda continued. What Chaminda was saying made me feel physically sick, and I became more determined than ever to develop a natural treatment plan. I told Chaminda all about my wife's condition and begged him to help me develop my research into something that could actually work. In return for a nominal payment, Chaminda agreed to work on a treatment protocol in his spare time, and from that moment on, we set off on a year-long journey to reverse type 2 diabetes. Chaminda firmly believed that by using the right ingredients and combining them in the correct amounts, we would be able to create a powerful natural remedy that would be able to regulate blood glucose levels, kickstart the pancreas, and reverse insulin resistance. Over a period of 12 months, Chaminda threw himself into his research. From the basement of his home in Sri Lanka, he created a state-of-the-art laboratory where he began testing and trialing thousands of different combinations of ingredients on mice. On their own, each ingredient produced impressive changes, but once Chaminda found the correct combinations and the perfect quantities, the results were spectacular. In fact, he was able to create a series of delicious meals which were 7 times more powerful than those consumed by the Vedda tribe of Sri Lanka. And as Chaminda explained, unlike a drug, which would require years of testing and FDA approval, we could start using our recipes on diabetic patients straight away because the formulas were 100% natural. We just needed one willing patient. And of course, that first patient was my wife. The very next morning, I visited my local grocery store to pick up all the ingredients I needed, and Rachel started the program right away, following the exact protocol that Chaminda had recommended. At first, we noticed no significant change in her readings, and my initial excitement and expectation was beginning to wane. In fact, I was starting to doubt everything that Chaminda had told me. Had I been foolish enough to think that a simple series of dishes could reverse my wife's diabetes? No, because not long after, something incredible happened. It was a crisp October morning, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Rachel hadn't eaten for 8 hours and checked her fasting blood sugar level to find that it had dropped by almost 50 points. We couldn't believe it. From this point on, the improvement was remarkable. Over time, Rachel's blood glucose levels continued to fall 500, 427, 365, 310, 260, and so on, until it reached a safe and healthy reading of 120. It was nothing short of a miracle. But on top of that, she'd lost a huge amount of weight, exactly 35 pounds, and her overall health was improving every day. She had so much more energy, and she was sleeping better, and the aches and pains in her legs and feet were starting to gradually disappear with every day that passed. On visiting her doctor, she was told that her cholesterol level and blood pressure had come down dramatically, back into the normal range for the first time in 5 years. And if things continued at the same pace, she wouldn't need to take any medication anymore for anything. My children and I couldn't believe what we were seeing. It really did work, and I was desperate to get this treatment protocol out to the public as soon as possible. But at the same time, I was well aware that we'd only trialed it on one person. I needed more proof. So over the next few weeks, I posted a series of adverts on the internet requesting volunteers. In total, 106 people in various stages of type 2 and even pre-diabetes agreed to take part in the experiment. The results were even more incredible than any of us could ever have imagined. 100% of patients achieved a drop in their blood sugar levels of at least 65%, and some as high as 150%, 200%, and more, bringing their blood sugar readings down from potentially fatal levels to completely stable and healthy numbers. What's more, the average weight loss was 23 pounds, and patients reported huge reductions in cholesterol levels, triglycerides, blood pressure, and nerve damage, and improvements in energy levels, muscle tone, mental agility, and even vision. In the weeks that followed, I received hundreds of emails, letters, and phone calls from overjoyed volunteers thanking me for changing their lives. And at that moment, I knew that I couldn't keep this discovery secret any longer. But before I reveal exactly what you will get inside this protocol and how you can start using it to reverse your type 2 diabetes, I need you to understand that what you're about to see is extremely personal to me. Seeing my own wife become paralyzed and almost die because of diabetes had a huge impact on our family, and I'm determined to ensure that no other family has to endure the devastating effects of this disease for a second longer than they have to. Today, I'm immensely proud to say that the shocking statistics often quoted about diabetes are about to change forever. The International Diabetes Federation, for example, reports that diabetes currently affects more than 371 million people worldwide, and this figure is expected to rise to a staggering 592 million by 2035. Tragically, diabetes will soon affect 1 in every 3 Americans, and the consequences of this are frightening for our health. According to a study in the UK called the National Diabetes Audit, people with diabetes are 65% more likely to have heart failure, 144% more at risk of needing kidney dialysis or a kidney transplant, 210% more likely to have a leg amputated, 331% more likely to need part of a foot removed, and 25% more at risk of suffering a stroke, like my wife. But the worst part about all of this is that our own healthcare system may actually be fueling this epidemic by continuing to recommend medication, despite the fact that no diabetes drug has ever reversed the disease. Today, I'm here to offer you an alternative. With Chaminda's help, I've created an all-natural home treatment for lowering blood sugar and reversing type 2 diabetes 100% naturally. And I've called it the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy, a natural, safe, and scientifically proven program for lowering blood sugar and reversing type 2 diabetes from home. This simple, easy-to-follow protocol, inspired by the blood sugar stabilizing diet of the Vedda people of Dambana, Sri Lanka, contains the exact same treatment program that enabled my wife Rachel to slash her blood sugar readings from a potentially fatal 605 milligrams per deciliter all the way down to a safe and stable 120, and completely reverse her diabetes in no time at all. Not to mention eradicating her paralysis, reversing her nerve damage, lowering her blood pressure and cholesterol, and helping her shed a whopping 35 pounds at the same time. You can think of this protocol as the Vedda Diet 2.0, and I believe it to be the most powerful and effective diabetes reversing program on earth. And today, I want you to have the chance to achieve the same life-changing results for yourself. So let me show you exactly what you're going to get. First, you will get the main Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy book, where you will find my Vedda Food Guide section, which includes the exact diabetes-busting ingredients consumed by the Vedda tribe of Dambana, Sri Lanka, the only population in the world with no recorded cases of diabetes. Inside the guide, you will discover everything you need to know about the Vedda people, their diet, and their lifestyle, which has made them virtually immune to diabetes. You will discover why today's diabetes medications can't cure you of this disease, but could actually make your symptoms worse. And I'll show you the clinical studies which inspired this treatment program. But that's not even the best part. As well as the main ingredients list, the book also includes my most powerful and easy to prepare blood sugar lowering recipes, complete with the exact ingredients, amounts, and combinations used in our most successful trials, and all of the recipes are separated into breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Each recipe also includes a full shopping list and has been specifically designed to remove all the hard work from your daily meal planning, so you can take control over your blood sugar levels, reverse your type 2 diabetes, and transform your health and waistline with the minimum of fuss. And finally, the piece de resistance, my 30-day blood sugar protocol, where you will find our most ruthlessly effective 30-day meal plan for reversing your type 2 diabetes from home. This is perfect for those who want maximum results but don't have time to search through individual recipes. Instead, simply open up the 30-day protocol, follow the daily meal plans, and let the transformation take place. Now, don't think for a moment that I'm expecting you to follow some kind of boring or restrictive diet here. I couldn't do that, and I don't expect you to either. The recipes included have been meticulously designed by a certified nutritionist and are quick, easy to prepare, filling, and taste great. And if you don't want to follow the recipes or the meal plans, you can simply add a few of the most powerful natural ingredients to your own meal plans instead. And I'll show you the precise amounts and combinations that will allow you to do that, while still achieving the fastest results possible. That's literally all it takes to take back control of your blood sugar levels right away, lose weight, transform your health, kick your type 2 diabetes to the curb, and potentially add years to your life expectancy in the process. And just imagine for a moment how that would feel. Imagine watching your blood sugar readings fall day after day until your doctor gives you the thumbs up and tells you that you no longer need to take medication anymore. Imagine the feeling you'll have when the weight starts falling off and you can fit into the jeans you haven't worn in years. Imagine no longer needing to take a blood sugar reading ever again. I'm talking no more test strips, no more needles, no more hospital visits, and no more having to watch everything you eat or deny yourself your favorite foods. And imagine the feeling you'll have when you know that with every mouthful of food you consume, you're dramatically reducing your risk of heart disease, stroke, kidney failure, blindness, nerve damage, and lower limb amputations, and improving your overall health and vitality, which will mean you're able to spend quality time with your children and watch your grandchildren grow up, get married, and have kids of their own. Thousands of men and women just like you are transforming their health and their lives as I speak, thanks to the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy. In fact, let's hear from one of them now.
Hi, I'm Lynn Crosby. I'm 45 and I live in Davenport, Iowa. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at the age of just 36. I was told there was no cure and that I would have to learn to live with it. So I did. I took my meds, I injected myself every day, and I let diabetes really affect every aspect of my life. For years, diabetes has controlled me. But last month, I felt that it was about time I took back control over my own health. I found the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy and thought, well, why not? The program was so easy to use, and the recipes were just delicious. In fact, they're so good that the entire family's following the recipes, and it feels great to know that I'm doing everything I can to safeguard their health as well as my own. The Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy has produced results beyond my wildest dreams. I never believed it was possible to reverse type 2 diabetes because that's what I was taught to believe from the day I was diagnosed. But now I know it is possible. And not only that, the health improvements I've seen and felt have been truly life-changing. So to anyone watching this, don't let diabetes ruin your life for a second longer. Get the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy and follow it because it really does work.
In fact, the men and women who have had success with this protocol would be the first to admit that they're not unique or special in any way. They're just regular people who have been failed by mainstream medicine and have instead followed a simple system of eating that has been proven to work, period. So the next question you're probably asking is this: how much is the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy? Well, before I answer that, I want to make it clear that you shouldn't be thinking of this as a cost at all. This is an investment in your long-term health, which is the most important investment you could ever make. I'm talking about reversing your type 2 diabetes and rapidly transforming every aspect of your health so you can get back to enjoying life again without the worry, cost, and inconvenience of diabetes. In contrast, the decision to walk away and save money today may not only cost you your health and many years of your life, but it could cost you tens of thousands of dollars too. Remember, a person with type 2 diabetes spends an average of $283,000 to treat the disease over their lifetime. So the decision to invest a tiny amount today could not only transform your health and happiness, it could save you a colossal amount of money over the next 10, 20, 30 years or more. And not just for you, but for your loved ones too. So tell me, how much would you pay to avoid a diabetes bill totaling $283,000? How much value do you place on your health and that of your families? How much would you be willing to part with to protect yourself and your loved ones from the pain and suffering that goes hand in hand with a lifetime of diabetes? Whatever that figure is in your head, forget it. Because the last thing I want is for price to be a factor in your decision. In fact, making money was literally the last thing on my mind when I set out on this journey. My mission was to help as many people as possible to reverse their type 2 diabetes, and I'm happy to say that number is now approaching 38,000. So although Chaminda has recommended a price of $997 for this remedy, and many people I've spoken to have said that they would have happily paid triple that after experiencing the life-changing results for themselves, I'm not going to ask you for anything like that figure. In fact, I'm not going to ask you for even a quarter of that, or 1/10 for that matter. Instead, if you act now, you can pick up the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy for the price you see below, which is enough to cover my costs and allow me to keep this website running. And all you need to do is click on the Add to Order button below. But before you do, there's something else I want to make clear. If you're skeptical about whether this protocol can really work for you, I completely understand. After all, from the moment you were diagnosed, you may have been told that drugs are the only answer. You've almost been conditioned to follow this route, with endless adverts on TV, in newspapers, magazines, and on billboards promoting the latest diabetes drugs. In fact, according to CBS News, the pharmaceutical industry spent a whopping $5.2 billion advertising their drugs last year. And a recent study from York University estimates the industry now spends twice as much on marketing as it does on research and development. So believe me, I completely understand if you're a little skeptical right now and don't believe that any kind of natural treatment can work for you. So here's what I'm going to do. To prove to you that this protocol works, and because I want as many diabetics to get their hands on it as I possibly can, I'm going to give you a 60-day risk-free money-back guarantee. This means you have a full 2 months to put the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy to the test, Read the guide, try out the meal plan and all of the recipes. And if you don't see a dramatic reduction in your blood sugar levels during that time, and a noticeable improvement in your symptoms and overall health, then simply email me at the address provided in the members area, and I will refund every single cent with no questions asked. And best of all, I'll even let you keep everything, just to say thank you for having faith in both me and my program, and for taking the necessary action to improve your health. But I'm still not finished. I want you to achieve the best results possible, as quickly as possible. So I'm also going to send you 2 special bonuses absolutely free. The first bonus is called Blood Sugar Lowering Smoothies. I'm doing this because I completely understand how busy life can get, and that not all of us can fit in 3 meals a day. So if you're pushed for time, you can still give your body exactly what it needs with a quick, easy to prepare, and great tasting smoothie packed full of diabetes-busting ingredients. In fact, reversing your type 2 diabetes has never been easier or tastier. But there's one more thing that will make the process of lowering your blood sugar, reducing insulin resistance, and reversing your diabetes even easier: better quality sleep. According to a study at the University of Chicago, a bad night's sleep raised morning blood sugar 23% and increased insulin resistance by a massive 82% in the largest study yet of sleep effects on diabetes control. In fact, a lack of quality sleep is devastating to the health of all diabetics and pre-diabetics. The Sleep Heart Health study found that adults who reported 5 hours of sleep or less were 2.5 times more likely to have diabetes compared with those who slept 7 to 8 hours a night. While another clinical study found that 5 hours of sleep or less was associated with a 45% increase in the risk of heart attacks. So, if you want to rid yourself of diabetes and improve your overall health, it's vital that you know how to get a quality night's sleep. In the Better Sleep Guide, you will discover how to quickly and safely boost your melatonin levels, the sleep hormone, and reduce your adrenaline and cortisol levels, the stress hormones. Time-tested and proven pre-sleep relaxation and medication techniques that will have you out like a light in seconds. 3 sleep-inducing herbal remedies proven to induce high-quality sleep. How to create the ideal sleep environment and bedtime routine that will relax your mind and body for a great night's sleep. Plus, every time-tested and proven sleep hygiene tip you'll ever need to know to transform not only your sleep, but your overall health and vitality too. So, for this small, one-time only investment, you will get instant access to the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy, complete with the Vedda Food Guide, your blood sugar lowering recipes, full shopping lists for every meal, and the 30-day blood sugar protocol. Plus, your 2 free bonuses, blood sugar lowering smoothies and the Better Sleep Guide. That's well over $1,000 of diabetes-crushing value, and you're getting it all for the small price you see below. That's less than you'd spend on a trip to the theater or a forgettable lunch at an average restaurant. It's nothing, yet it can give you everything in return. I'm talking about vibrant health and vitality, not to mention tens of thousands of dollars saved. And don't forget, your order comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee, meaning there's 0 financial risk on your part. And I'll even let you keep the entire program just to say thanks for trying it. So for now, you have 2 options. Option 1, you can carry on taking your meds or pump yourself full of insulin like a good little diabetic. But remember, today's diabetes, medication, and insulin shots can't cure you. They can only manage your condition. They will never address the root cause. So how are you ever going to get better? We're talking about a lifetime of drug dependency here. And if you think that doesn't sound too bad, don't forget that the average diabetic will spend $283,000 to treat the disease and its complications during the course of their lifetime. That's the financial cost of doing nothing. The human cost is far greater. I'm talking about excessive weight gain, losing a limb, a heart attack, stroke, nerve damage, blindness, kidney failure, and more, which means you could be cutting your life short by years and possibly even decades. Is that really a risk you want to take for the sake of a few bucks? Do you really want to play fast and loose with your health and potentially lose a hand or a foot, go blind, or suffer a devastating stroke that could leave you paralyzed, brain damaged, and consigned to a wheelchair for the rest of your life, unable to function or even talk? I'm not trying to scare you here. These are the very real risks of doing nothing, of not taking action, of option 1. Or there's the second option, the smart option. investing a tiny one-time payment in the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy today so you can put my program to the test, completely risk-free for a full 60 days. And just imagine the difference this could make to your life. No more finger pricks or test strips. No more injections. No more having to deny yourself the foods you love. No more having to live your life with the constant worry of crashing, hanging over you, or ending up in a diabetic coma. And no more fear of having your life cut drastically short by type 2 diabetes and devastating the lives of those you love. Both you and your family deserve better than that, and this is your chance to make it happen. Thanks to this protocol, I have my wife back. My children have their mother back. And tens of thousands of people right across the world now have many happy years to look forward to without the fear, frustration, and inconvenience of type 2 diabetes. So it's now time to make your decision. And I think you know which button to hit. So click it now, before it's too late, and start putting the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy to the test completely risk-free for a full 60 days and experience the life-changing benefits for yourself. Go ahead and click the Add to Cart button below, and I'll see you in the members area. Still here? No problem, I completely understand. After all, what I've just revealed is pretty shocking, I know. It's a lot to take in, and you might still have a few questions that you need answering, which is why I've decided to compile a list of my most frequently asked questions, so you have all the information you need to make an informed decision. Michael, if your Vedda remedy works so well, why didn't Big Pharma develop it themselves? That's a good question, but what you might not know is that natural ingredients cannot be patented by any company, or anyone else for that matter. In theory, a pharmaceutical company could take these natural ingredients and chemically alter them to create a drug, but as with any drug, the research and development, patient trials and FDA approval process could take anywhere from 10 to 15 years. Will this remedy work for me? Look, we're all human beings, and our bodies all function in the same way. Sure, results will vary across individuals. Some will see quicker and more dramatic reductions in their blood sugar levels than others, but ultimately, the specific nutrients, vitamins, and minerals found in these ingredients will have the same positive effects on everyone. Inferior versions of these recipes have been used for centuries by the Vedda tribe of Dambana, Sri Lanka, who have no recorded cases of diabetes. The recipes you'll be getting are 7 times more effective at regulating blood sugar and reversing the disease. And to prove it, this remedy has already worked for 37,838 people. So why would it not work for you too? And that leads me on to another question that I often get asked. Will I get my money back if it doesn't work? And the answer is yes, absolutely. As I said, this treatment program has worked for almost 38,000 people already, but I completely understand if you're feeling a little skeptical. And that's why your order comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. If you don't see the reduction in blood sugar levels that you're hoping for, your symptoms don't dramatically improve, or you change your mind for any reason at all, then simply email me at the address provided in the members area and I will issue a full and prompt refund. No catch. No hoops to jump through. And that's a promise. Will my details be secure? Yes, I can absolutely guarantee it. Our ordering system contains state-of-the-art encryption technology, so when you order with us, your information is 100% safe and secure. What do I receive in the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy? Every order comes with the Vedda Blood Sugar Remedy book, which includes a range of ingredients consumed by the Vedda tribe of Dambana, Sri Lanka, which kept their blood sugar in a permanent state of stability and left them practically immune to diabetes. You will also find dozens of delicious and easy-to-prepare recipes for lowering blood sugar, as well as full shopping lists for each recipe, the 30-day blood sugar protocol itself, and finally, your 2 bonus gifts, blood sugar-lowering smoothies and the Better Sleep Guide. How long will the program be available for? The truth is, I really don't know. I've already invested a lot of money and time to create this website and keep it running, and I honestly don't know how much longer I can continue doing it. So if you want a proven, safe, and completely natural way to lower your blood sugar levels quickly and easily, reverse your type 2 diabetes, lose weight, and transform your overall health in the process, then I urge you to act now while you still have the chance. To get started, simply click on the button below and I'll see you on the inside.